Hey everyone, and welcome back to English Talk Podcast. I'm Chris.
And I'm Emma. Today's topic is something I think a lot of people can relate to, especially in today's world.
Yeah, let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to focus on what's wrong in your life? Like, even on a good day, your brain still finds that one tiny thing to complain about?
All the time. You get 10 compliments and one little piece of criticism. And guess what sticks in your head all day?
Exactly. That's because our brains are naturally wired to focus on the negative. It's actually a survival thing, something we inherited from our ancestors.
But the good news is, we can change that. We can train our minds to think more positively, not in a fake, overly happy way, but in a real, healthy, and practical way.
So, in today's episode, we're talking about how to shift your mindset, how to notice the good, challenge the negative, and actually retrain your brain to see things differently.
We'll talk about why our brains tend to focus on problems, how that affects our thoughts and emotions, and, most importantly, how to start building a more positive mental habit.
And as always, we'll be using natural, clear English to help you learn while you listen. So, whether you're here for the life tips, the language, or both, you're in the right place.
Let's get into it.
So, let's start with the question. Why does the brain focus so much on the negative? Why is it easier to remember a mistake than a success?
Well, a lot of it comes down to evolution. Thousands of years ago, paying attention to danger was a matter of survival. Our ancestors needed to constantly watch out for threats. Wild animals, storms, rival tribes.
Right. And that threat detector is still in our brains today. It's part of something called the negativity bias, the natural tendency to notice and remember negative events more than positive ones.
And honestly, it still has a role. If you burn yourself on the stove, your brain wants to make sure you remember that, so it doesn't happen again.
The problem is, in modern life, we don't face wild animals, but we do face stress, self doubt, deadlines, social media comparison, and our brains still react like it's a survival threat.
Exactly. You get one awkward comment in a meeting, or your friend doesn't text back right away, and suddenly your brain goes, "What's wrong? Did I mess up? Am I not good enough?"
And it's exhausting, right? Because even when things are mostly fine, our brains are scanning for problems.
It's like your brain has a little alarm system, and it's a bit too sensitive.
But here's the good part. Once you understand this, you realize it's not you. You're not negative because you're weak or dramatic. It's just how your brain was built.
Totally. And that awareness is the first step. Once you know what your brain is doing, you can start to respond differently.
Instead of believing every negative thought, you can pause and go, wait, is this real? Or is my brain just reacting?
And that's where the shift begins. Not by forcing yourself to just be positive, but by understanding why the negative shows up and gently training your brain to look in a new direction.
So, the big question now is, can we actually change the way we think? Or are we just stuck with this negativity bias forever?
The good news is, we're not stuck. Thanks to something called neuroplasticity, our brains can change. They're constantly forming new connections based on what we do, think, and focus on.
Neuroplasticity is one of my favorite words. It basically means your brain is like a muscle. The more you use a certain part of it, the stronger it gets.
Exactly. So if you're always focusing on what's wrong, your brain gets better at doing that. But if you practice focusing on what's right, what's working, or what you're grateful for, you can actually train your brain to go there more easily.
It doesn't mean you'll never have negative thoughts again. That's impossible. But it does mean you can change your default setting.
It's kind of like building a new path through a forest. The first time you try to walk through, it's difficult. There are branches, no clear way. But the more you walk that path, the clearer it gets. And eventually, it becomes your main road.
Love that image. And science backs it up. Studies show that people who practice certain mental habits, like gratitude, mindfulness, or self compassion, actually change the physical structure of their brain over time.
And the best part? It doesn't take hours a day. Even just a few minutes of intentional thinking every day can make a real difference.
It's like brushing your teeth. You don't do it once and expect perfect results. But if you do it regularly, little by little, your brain gets healthier.
I think that's such an encouraging idea. You're not stuck with your current mindset. You can shape it. You can train it, just like you train your body at the gym.
And just like at the gym, it might feel awkward at first. You might forget, get frustrated, or feel like it's not working. But over time, you will notice the shift.
Your thoughts become lighter. You bounce back from stress more easily, and you start to catch yourself. Instead of falling into old negative loops, you say, hold on, I know this feeling. I've been here before. I don't have to stay here.
And that's powerful. Because even though life still has ups and downs, your mind becomes a kinder, calmer place to live.
All right, so now that we know it's possible to rewire the brain, how do we actually do it? What are some simple habits we can use in real life?
I love this part because we're not talking about big, dramatic changes. We're talking about tiny daily things that slowly shift the way your brain works.
Totally. And the first one is gratitude. I know it sounds basic, but writing down just 3 things you're grateful for every day, even small stuff, starts to train your brain to look for the good.
Exactly. You don't have to be grateful for a perfect life. You can be grateful for your morning coffee, a funny message from a friend, or just the fact that the sun came out.
And when you look for good things, your brain starts noticing them more. It's like adjusting your mental filter.
Another one is self-talk. Pay attention to the way you talk to yourself. Would you speak to a friend the way you speak to you?
Oof, that hits hard. Because sometimes our inner voice is so harsh. I'm so stupid. I always mess up. I'll never get this right. But if someone else said that to us, we'd be like, hey, that's not okay.
Right? So try this. When you catch a negative thought, pause and reframe it. Instead of I failed, try I'm still learning. Instead of I can't do this, try I'm figuring it out.
It sounds small, but it makes a big difference over time. The words we use shape our experience.
Here's another one. Limit your input. If your brain is constantly getting negative messages from the news, social media, toxic people, it's going to be hard to think positively.
True. So maybe you start your day with something uplifting instead of scrolling through your feed. Maybe you unfollow that account that always makes you feel less than. Maybe you even create a feel-good playlist for your mood.
Yes, build an environment that supports your mental shift. Fill your space and your brain with things that lift you up, not drag you down.
And last but not least, mindfulness. Just taking a moment each day to slow down, breathe, and notice how you're feeling.
You don't need to be a meditation expert. You can pause while making tea, take a mindful walk, or even just close your eyes for 1 minute and breathe deeply.
The goal isn't to clear your mind, it's to notice your mind. And that awareness helps you respond instead of react.
And when you put these habits together, even if you do them imperfectly, they slowly start to change the way you think and feel.
It's not about being positive all the time. It's about creating space for more balance, more peace, and more kindness in the way you relate to your own mind.
All right, let's take a breath and do a little recap.
We started by talking about how our brains are naturally wired to focus on the negative. It's a survival mechanism, not a personal flaw.
Then we explored the idea of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change and grow based on what we think, feel, and practice.
And we shared some simple daily habits that can help retrain your brain to notice the good: gratitude, kind self-talk, mindful moments, and protecting your mental space.
The truth is, thinking more positively isn't about ignoring the hard stuff. It's about building the strength to face it with a better mindset.
And that's the real goal. Not fake happiness, but real resilience. A brain that helps you bounce back, look forward, and feel grounded even when life gets messy.
So here's our question for you. What's one small thing you can start doing today to shift your mindset?
It could be writing down something you're grateful for, or catching one negative thought and changing the way you talk to yourself. Small steps matter.
We'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments or message us. What works for you? What's your experience with mindset and positivity?
And if this episode helped you, or made you think, consider following the podcast, leaving a review, or sharing it with a friend who might need it.
Thanks so much for listening to English Talk Podcast. Remember, your brain is powerful, and with a little intention, you can teach it to work for you, not against you.
Keep practicing, keep growing, and be kind to yourself along the way.
We'll see you in the next episode. Until then,
Take care, and think kind thoughts.